Welcome to this week's episode of Sojourner, and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Welcome back to the ongoing series, How Spaces Define Masculinity, a Black and Black Biracial Men's Initiative. My name is Carol Jean Matthews-Shifflett, and I am the CEO of the Sojourner Group. I'd like to start by thanking my sponsors, the Utah Jazz, Planned Parenthood Association of Utah, Pacific Island Knowledge to Action Resource, PCAR, the Utah Coalition Against Sexual Assault, UCASA, and Inlighten Productions. Session 2 brings you three new men. Commodore Stone, an Atlanta-based technical consultant for private organizations and government agencies. He's a community activities volunteer and previous youth mentor. His foundation years were developed in urban cities, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Georgia, Dallas, Texas, and Louisville, Kentucky. And then we have Chief Brian Lorkey. Chief is a retired deputy of the Unified Police Department in Kearns, Utah. He's currently head of the Security of Biofire Diagnostics. His foundation was developed in New York City and Northern California. And lastly, I bring you Pastor Marlon Lynch III, pastor and founder of Kingdom Huddle. He's an actor, was a lead mentor facilitator for Steve Harvey, and is president of the NAAGA FIST Foundation, which stands for the National African American Gun Association. The pastor's foundation was developed in Detroit, Michigan. Welcome, gentlemen. I'm going to go to Mr. Commodore with that question, and then I want to throw in this. A lot of times when men don't have when men grow up around men, but when they have this daughter, everything changes. So, Mr. Commodore, go ahead and answer what was your understanding about the treatment of women, but then let's go to this topic of how things change when you have a daughter, bring a girl into this world. Mr. Commodore.
Okay. That when I was listening to the other brothers, that was for me, growing up and trying to understand the treatment per se and understanding of women was all over the place. And the reason being because I had all these different personalities that I had to kind of that were bringing me along for growing up. As a child, I respected my mother, and my mother and father had a great understanding and were positive roles. However, when I was thrust into that other side of that life, I started viewing and seeing all kind of things that would leave a confusing mark. So say, for instance, like I mentioned, some of those homes I was raised by women. Some of those women were not so right, although they were approved of by the legal system to keep children. They were doing things that, like, taking advantage of certain men, and I would see the bad and the good side of everything. And that's why I'm so glad that I'm blessed to be able to be the person I am today, because I think that if I literally took everything that I learned and how to deal with women, it wouldn't be in a positive way. However, I've learned things along the way as my youth from the better side to hold to the better side. So with that being said, the last several homes that I lived in, the women that raised me were really positive and they were really great. They taught me how to walk that road of doing what's right, to go into the world of mixed ethnicities, how to speak right, do right, even though, I was, out in the streets or whatever. When you come home, you come home to this loving, one of the ladies I call one of my play grannies, who wasn't even related to me, but I ended up, used to go to the store for her, buy, alcohol and other things, underage and stuff for her. And, but at the same time, she was like more than a mother or anything to me. So she raised me to cope with society and life. And so it made me have a great respect for her and for women. However, I've known enough on the other side of the fence to try to have to figure out the balance between both. And so thank God I end up with the balance on the better side of that.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. And so, well, do you have a daughter? Do you have children?
No, and the crazy thing is, I don't have children. And reason why I don't, one of the reasons why I don't have children is because of the life that I had to go through and live through. I always said that I didn't want to have children until I had a good woman, a wife. And so I wanted to do things the right way of what I had to grow through. So until I got that situation, I didn't want to make something or allow something to happen. As a matter of fact, that the one lady I mentioned that I called my granny, she used to always tell me, keep it covered, baby, keep it covered. And so when the time came as I got older, she was like, what are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? Like, one minute you're telling me keep it covered, now is what are you waiting on? So, I was just waiting on the right time. And it's funny when you mentioned about the whole daughters thing, because see, I have goddaughters and I got nieces that are like, everybody knows is like children to me. Mm-hmm. And so, and I have some of my best friends have daughters, and it does, everything is just, it changes it all when you go into that world of having to have these daughters. Because a lot of my friends used to always say, the way I was living and things that we were living and growing through, they said, you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to have a daughter. And if you have a daughter, then, this will all come back on you as karma. But I love women. I've grown up loving women. Women saved my life. That's
an interesting, because I say the same thing. That person's going to have a daughter for sure. What about you, Pastor Lynch?
Oh, I have two beautiful daughters, a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. So I'm a girl dad for sure. But I think that, like I tell my wife, it is that invisible umbilical cord. I didn't really know what love was until I had my first daughter, and that's the honest truth. But however, although like I said earlier, I was taught how to treat a woman, that doesn't mean that I always treated a woman like she was supposed to be treated. So even in my bad days, in my street days, I made some decisions, and I've been very disrespectful at times. But it's a learning experience, right? I always say that when I was a boys look to be served, men look to have an act of service. So when I was a boy, I always wanted to be served. Everything is about me, no matter what the situation is. But then when I became a man, I said it's not about me, and I tried to see and put myself in ways to be of service. So that's what I try to do with my girls. My girls are the first king that they will see. They will implement and live their lives and judge men off of how I treat them. Do I fail sometimes? Absolutely. My wife has to remind me sometimes that, hey, remember, they're girls. So I do have to pull back at times. However, I want that open dialogue, so my girls are open to have conversations with me, no matter how easy it may be or matter how hard it may be. Because if I don't teach them, society will teach them. And I don't want society to teach them anything. Am I the best dad? Absolutely not. But every day I try to grow into the dad that God called me to be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That's good. What about you, Brian?
So yeah, I've got a 14-year-old son and a 16-year-old. She'll be 16 in a couple weeks. Daughter, and just like the pastor said, you don't know love until you lock eyes with your child.
Pastor, you sitting in the house with a shotgun, huh?
Uh-huh. Right here. Well, yeah, especially as they get older, as they get to those teenage years. Yep, you keep that shotgun ready. It is true. There is a protective nature amongst dads that, man, you can't fight that. That comes natural when it comes to your children, especially your daughters. And I don't think that ever goes away. I don't see that ever fading, and it probably grows stronger and stronger as they get older. And raising girls is definitely different. Different than having a sister. You're protective of your sister. You're protective of your mother. But having a daughter, there's nothing like it.
Nothing like it. One of the things. So, two of you are married. Are you in an interracial marriage? Are you in a marriage with a Black woman? Pastor Lynch and Brian.
I am married to a white woman. So my children's mother, who I divorced 10 years ago, is white, and my current wife is white as well.
Okay. And what about you, Pastor Lynch?
I'm married to a black queen, and both my kids are from my wife.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So my next question, and we'll start with let's see. We'll start with you, Pastor Lynch, since you're here. Do you think, as a black and as a black man, that you have to maneuver masculinity different in American society because your parents? Well, actually, this question would be for Chief Lorky. But so I'll finish it with Chief Lorky, and I'll start it with you. What do you think of black masculinity in America? And as a black man, do you think that it's different, and how so?
Uh, Without even a question. Especially being living in Utah, being big, being black. When I walk out the door, there's the stereotypes start flying my way before I can even get into my car. I have been told that I'm aggressive. I look aggressive. I speak aggressively. All these things that I was taught as a young boy, to stand firm, to look people in the eyes, to have good posture, to speak firmly. And now society is trying to tell me that those are wrong, and not to do that, because you become, a lack of better words, a stereotype as a criminal. And I think that we as men, black men too, have to redefine society role as men, especially black men. I don't think that we should throw away everything that we were taught. I think that people need to adjust. I mean, if they're not used to being around people like myself, maybe they need to evaluate their crayon box and put some different colors in their crayon box. So I try to have dialogue with people so I can invite people in to know who I really am. I'm not aggressive. I'm just passionate about what I love, and I'm loyal to about what I love. So I think there is a thin line between being assertive. So I just try to have conversation with people and let people know that I'm open, because if they feel some type of way about how I present or how I am or how I'm looking, just ask me, and I'm approachable. So
Okay. What about you, Commodore? Black masculinity in America, in American society. Do you think that, what do you think about how it is presented or how it has to be presented? Do you think it's different?
You know, I definitely have to say that other than the spurt of time that I spent in Louisville, I had been in a lot of interracial areas, even with Washington, but especially when I lived in Dallas. Whereas you can tell the differences of where you are and how black masculinity is perceived as opposed to the other side of the fence, or the other side of the fence is because you know you're spoken of in different ways. You're expected to do certain different things. You're told to work or do things a different way. So as I ended up traveling outside, as I grew into an adult, I started learning that it's almost like speaking a different language when you're amongst certain areas, certain people, how you present your quote unquote masculinity, because it's not, everything's not so acceptable, to everyone, of how you act or react to things. And many times I always joke with folks, but it's really not that big of a joke. I mean, it's really more of a serious matter than I'm saying that I speak different languages just because of the fact that I have to present myself in a different manner when interacting with corporate America, as opposed to certain neighborhoods or certain people or the church or other places. And so, because your view is different, and not to mention, I'm sorry, Chief, but being faced with the police in different areas and places and whatnot, because a lot of times you never know, you immediately a lot of times don't know, you're getting pulled over and you know why, because you are black, and so therefore you got to kind of show that you're not just black, that you're also intelligent, or that you have certain criteria that is okay. So instead of I'm not just this black man or this man that's doing something wrong or could be. Because I mean, so it's you have to have a different face ready, and hopefully be able to have the discernment to adjust and change your masculinity when faced among different environments. Definitely different cultures or different ethnicities, and as well even different cities and areas. Sometimes, I've learned that from having to travel around throughout the world, or wherever my adult years, that how I have to tone some things down or bring some things up. But sometimes you don't want to just let go of who you are inside of what your manhood is. And so, that's kind of how you have to, or how I've had to approach that. And now if I had to talk to any other young men, how to kind of, hopefully to learn that, push those processes on so they may be able to navigate that as well.
Okay, so, and you answered one of the questions that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, but so Chief, just putting a little twist on this, do you think as a Black biracial man that you had to maneuver masculinity different in American society because of being interracial?
Absolutely. This was always something that was on my mind, because in my household, I was the only brown person, really. So I was not taught how to navigate society as a brown person in America. I had to learn that on my own, and sometimes I had to learn the tough way. I learned a lot from my friends and their families. My father, who's Black, I had an estranged relationship from him. I hadn't talked to him for about 30 years until just a couple of years ago. So we've had a lot of conversations about this, and a lot of things that I've been thirsting for is, how do I be a brown person in America? And I've told him about my experiences and stepping out the door. And just like what Commodore mentioned, as you walk out and have to put on these different faces, that's a stress that puts on you every day. And those little stresses just add up. It's very disconcerting. I had a similar conversation with my wife, who's white, and we've been having a lot of these conversations lately because of national events going on. And she brought up the point that, when she leaves, let's say she's shopping at the store or shopping at the mall, and it's late at night, and she's walking out to the parking lot, how she feels that fear of, is somebody watching me? Is somebody doing this, doing that? And I said, that's exactly what POCs in America feel every day, especially here in Utah, because there's not a huge Black community here. And I'm sure Pastor recognized this, but when we are out in the store, out in the mall, and you see another person of color and you lock eyes with them, there's a wink and a nod and a smile, because you understand, right? You understand the struggles that they go through as they're out in public, as they're out in America. They understand that the eyes are on them. And I've had these similar conversations with other police officers who don't understand that type of stress when somebody of color is pulled over. They are going through a lot of stress right now. Why am I being stopped? Did I do something wrong? There's a guilty part of that, but also that fear of, did I just get stopped because of my skin color? Or is there something seriously wrong? So there's a lot of education that needs to go on with others and our friends that don't understand that other side of it. And it all begins with conversation. But there definitely is a stress on masculinity of people of color when they're walking around in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're right, that eye locking in Utah, because one of the things I've found is that a lot of people don't speak, Black people don't speak to each other. And so when you find that person that locks the eye here, it's because this is common in our culture across the United States, but not necessarily common in Utah.
Stay tuned for the next episode on How Spaces Define Masculinity, a Black and Black biracial men's initiative.